Serve umpire. The match ball's in the middle. And Temapara George gets us underway as the Silver Ferns in possession for the first time, looking straight to get it to Irene van Dijk, and Liz Ellis, the Australian captain, has something to say about that. Oh, great start from the Aussie skipper, as she'd want. The ball's placed into Irene in that fashion have to be spot on, eh?
I think a nervous start from the Silver Ferns captain, Nadine Wilson. She dropped it short. Liz had great position, and that's exactly what she wanted for Australia, but back in New Zealand hands.
So George, Tahuna to the corner, and Wilson has turned it over. So a nervous start from both sides, as the marking up is all you'd expect. Every pass will be hotly contested. And Demelza Fellows at goal defence. That is a surprise from Norma Plummer.
Yes, many expecting to see Monia Gerard there. Demelza Fellows, though, with an incredible reach, and it's interesting, will we see her drop back and work with Liz Ellis, focusing on Van Dijk, or will she take on Tahuna one-on-one?
McMahon looking to shoot over Davu. First up, first goal Australia. Billy Davu, her 99th international cap, 44th for New Zealand. She played 55 for Fiji. Bomberto. So Natalie Bomberto, 5 caps, Avellino 17, Monia Gerard 8. It's a little inexperienced in the middle for Australia.
Certainly is, when you consider that Nadine Wilson and Temapara George between them share 91 test caps, so they really know their trade well, but they have to step up on international court, so a great opportunity for Bomberto and for Gerard.
So Bomberto has the centre pass after the first goal coming from Irene van Dijk. We realistically expect her to shoot in the 90s as New Zealand force a turnover.
Well, great work from Temapara George, who was hunting offline, off her own player.
Jodie Tahuna allowed to work a 1-2. Who's got the rebound? Ellis has.
Steve, that's a significant start from Liz Ellis, because you speak of the accuracy of Van Dijk and, of course, ample possession, but she's also the best rebounder on court and often comes up with more rebounds in that circle than her opponents.
Oh, and misunderstanding in the circle between Avellino and McMahon. They're not normal club combinations, of course.
Well, Sherelle McMahon unsighted for that ball from Avellino.
I think she thought there was someone behind her. As Wilson gives off to Temapara George, who just lets it bounce. Smart play. And Temapara George playing her 42nd test for the Silver Ferns as they level it at 2-all, and they'll have the centre pass. Quite a few mistakes in the opening 3 minutes. Tahuna trying to find George. Just too many Australian hands there, and taller ones as well. Gerard.
Great combination then from Demelza Fellows and Monia Gerard, who sagged back off the ball, took out the feeding player.
Avellino changing the point of attack. Cox. Davu to the ground for a moment.
Wing defense.
And the ball goes against Langman. Cox. Screen set by McMahon, and a goal to Australia with the centre pass to come. McMahon, Bomberto and Avellino. They'll have a good understanding. Adelaide teammates. Cox. Thought about it and dropped, and a 2-goal lead for Australia. Australia haven't missed any attempts yet.
And that's very significant. If we look at the last 3 matches between these two, they've enjoyed equal possession, but unfortunately on the match Australia lost in the series last November, it was due to poor shooting. They shot at 66%. If they keep it up in the 80s, they're in business.
50-42 was the match that New Zealand won in that series, the middle test in Perth. As Tahuna misses, but she gets her own rebound.
Well, it was a courageous attempt to step it on against an Australian defence.
13th cap for Tahuna. McMahon to Avellino. Trying to get the smart ball to Catherine Cox. It will be Australia's ball.
Well, Cox set up very early on the hold. She was a little too early, but she comes up with the penalty, much to a part of the crowd's horror.
And gets a rebound. Davu, contact on the ball. So right under the nose of Anne-Marie Dixon.
Davu has already incurred 3 penalties. She has the ability to be one of the more costly players on court. She'll want to check that.
George to Tahuna, and over the head of Wilson. Excuse me calling her a Dean Harper, as she was.
Apologies across the Tasman to Mr. Wilson.
Yes. Oh, and Australia throw it away in turn. Gerard a little anxious over that one. So neither coach would be pleased with the turnover rate just at the moment. George gets one off the floor from Henry. Looking for Van Dijk. Pulls the trigger early and misses. That's a rare miss. They better treasure this, Australia. Avellino has it. Gerard. And into the arms of Laura Langman. Good pressure in defence from the Silver Ferns. Expect nothing less.
Laura Langman, only her 4th international, so great pressure over the ball. And of course, she's keeping off a former Silver Fern captain, Leslie Rumble, formerly Nickel. Most of our viewers would know her as, on the sideline for the start of this match.
The shoulder heavily strapped. So we'll see that if she gets on the court. So Ruth Aitken looks fairly calm, composed courtside.
Has a very pleasant demeanour courtside, doesn't give much away.
McMahon with the rebound. Oh, and well, it was out off McMahon, but the challenge from Davu.
McMahon up early because she knew it had dropped short, took it well in the air, landed it beautifully, but Davu slaps the hands together because they draw the throw in. I have to disagree with the call.
Henry and Langman over her head. George.
You see a great shot there of Demel Zafello sagging back with Liz Ellis to work 2 on Irene Van Dijk, leaving Tahuna unguarded.
Tahuna, the feed to Van Dijk, just too good. And 5-all. Looking for 3 in a row, the Silver Ferns. Langman to the flying Wilson. Nearly a touch from Fellows, but that great split that Irene Van Dijk has with her 190 centimetres and long legs. And Van Dijk is 4 from 5. Tahuna 2 from 4. They had 2 more attempts, New Zealand, and lead it by 1.
Great vision from Nat Avellino, and no doubt there probably was a call from the Australian vice-captain as she drove the post, but Potts clearing the room for her teammate then. Beautiful understanding in the forward line.
Oh, some heavy defence going in over every shot. Henry, the initial obstruction. She has it now. And penalties on the transverse line. George to Wilson.
Jodie Tahuna working to try and distract attention from Irene Van Dijk. She's doing all the peripheral work on the edge while Van Dijk puts the hold on.
Halfway through the first quarter, and it's New Zealand by 1. Australia's had a 2-goal lead, given it up. McMahon had to give off to Avellino. It's hands over every pass, as we expected, and Cox gets it. She's 5 from 6, McMahon 2 from 3. And the crowd being treated to the intensity they expected. Langman. Wilson to Tahuna. And George. New Zealand ball.
Good work from Liz Ellis then, because she was torn between staying on the double play on Van Dijk and trying to come forward to get a touch on that edgy ball.
Delightful hands from Adine Wilson. And New Zealand out by 1 again. Avellino. Cox. Just to go back to Matt Avellino. That's off a New Zealand foot. No? Yes?
Yeah, I saw it off a New Zealand foot, but I think the umpire probably had eyes further down.
Davu. And well taken by Tahuna. Van Dijk out of range. Touch on it from Ellis. The Kiwis can get reset. Langman to Wilson. Tahuna. That left foot was well planted near the post. And too close, the Aussie defence. So a handy shot now for Tahuna. He's improved to 4 from 6.
That was smart play from Temapara, George. She realised the umpire was near the post on the base and therefore couldn't see whether the distance was good over the ball from the Australian defender. So she played it back, opened up some space for herself.
Still playing 2 back on Van Dijk, but they find her on the baseline. And she'll find the ring again, and they're out by 3. Australia with the centre pass, looking to peg one back.
Sherelle McMahon is doing a wealth of work on the centre pass. She's taking the line, letting Avellino sit back as the next linking player. So a change of formula there for the Australian attack.
Cox provided the lead. And McMahon was free. She tried to get it to Cox. And Davu, who careered up court expecting the call.
I think she was trying to bluff the call. I don't think anybody's been fooled.
10-8 New Zealand, 5 left in the first quarter. Tahuna to Wilson. George, oh, hand on it from Gerard. Little sneaky, but well spotted by Beryl Lewis-Turner. And, oh, but that was off a New Zealand hand.
Offside call that will give possession to New Zealand just inside the circle. Tahuna steps up.
Van Dijk. Well, a fair challenge from Liz Ellis.
Van Dijk 7 from 9 is shooting at 78%, but just starting to work her way into the rebounds.
Australia struggling on some of these centre passes. Gerard. Avellino. Gerard's free. Cox trying to muscle away past Billy Davu. Now, Davu's caught out of the circle. Shoots a withering look at the umpire. Her 5th penalty. Obstruction against Langman. They're really trying to slow the Australians down.
That was smart play by New Zealand. They put a lot of pressure on the player taking the penalty, forcing them to back play. That gives them the person out of play able to re-enter the game. So back to 2-on-2.
Cox finds some space. And this is a worrying sign with Sherelle McMahon forced to take an injury timeout. And an ankle, it would seem to be, as Wayne Rogers comes out. So it's New Zealand by 2, and Vicky Wilson, former Australian captain, is with us, and another former Australian captain in Monica Lam. Vicky, how have you seen these opening exchanges?
Well, it's fast and furious, and there were a few nerves at the start, but full credit to the Australian team. They've been copping a lot of body out there, particularly in their forward line. Davu's coming in hard, as is Henry working on McMahon, so they're starting to steady up.
Thanks, Vic. We'll just see if we can ascertain how McMahon suffered this injury. Just look for a roll of an ankle. She actually did it on a teammate, Kath Cox. That's unlucky, a right ankle roll. And Monica Lam, we see Megan Anderson coming into the game.
Megan Anderson's had a great year in the CBT competition, and Australia really having to shut down New Zealand as it heads to the top of the circle. And I think that Temepara George and also Adine Wilson are cutting Australia apart defensively at the current time.
Temepara George with the centre pass. As the ball finds its way to Irene Van Dijk, starting to find their mark. New Zealand. As they search, not all the time for Irene Van Dijk. Jodie Tahuna, a good foil for her. Avellino to Cox. And this may improve the combination for Australia with Anderson and Cox, the Swifts teammates, out there now.
Well, of course, they come off the back of a very strong season to date domestically, and Anderson just a master at opening spaces and being the decoy for a teammate.
Did not expect to be called into the game quite this early under these circumstances, with an injury to Sherelle McMahon. And New Zealand back out by 3. 3 minutes left, first quarter. And the Silver Ferns will be very happy with this. Nice move from Cox to lead Davu out.
Well, Avellino really dictated the play, almost implied the space was there. It was a lovely understanding. Australia won't want to give up Sherelle McMahon. Of course, she wasn't able to play in the November series because she was coming back from ankle injury, but Norma Plummer will want to protect her. Commonwealth Games all important.
Yes, we do know that McMahon has had ankle problems. Umberto to Anderson. And Avellino leaned out by... I don't like some of the style of play of Billy Davu. She's just a little late with some of those challenges.
I think we commented in the November series that was part of the game, and I think she's been a little more on guard, but the ones she's chosen to go on have caused Catherine Cox to flinch.
Van Dijk out of the successful Waikato Magic team in their National League in New Zealand. Really helped carry them to victory, and a few of her teammates in this Silver Ferns lineup. And Van Dijk, 72 tests for South Africa, 55 for New Zealand. Umberto to Cox.
New Zealand enjoying 5 more attempts to post in this first quarter than Australia.
Anderson leaves it behind for Avellino. Long range shot. Davu's all over it. Anderson not phased. Wilson to Huna. Oh, good hands up. Gerard takes it after the tip from Fellows. And, oh dear, can't do that. Not against the Silver Ferns. Langman looking for George. Finds her. To Huna. Wilson. And another touch from Fellows. What do you make of the first quarter?
Well, I guess as we expected, if De Melza was to be on court, it was to play more a circle role with Liz shutting out Arjen van Dijk. And whilst they've been effective with that, Jodie de Huna is stepping up to the mark and doing a lot of the edgy work. So there needs to be, I think, a variation between the two.
Obstruction against Tahuna. Fellows has it. On to Anderson. In traffic to Von Berto. And Cox, 9 from 10. Make that 10 from 11. Shooting as she's done through the National League, Anna.
Catherine Cox is in great form, and I think, too, it's good to see Anderson on, not at the expense of McMahon, but it does give a different timing to the Australian line for New Zealand to think about.
Oh, and a miscommunication through a collision of bodies. And New Zealand get it straight back after a rare turnover, and Tahuna will convert this. And they're back out by 3 with 14 seconds left. Australia maybe with a chance to get it down there. 2-on-1 on Avellino. Anderson back to Gerard. Umberto. Avellino to Cox. Pull the trigger. Got it. And by half a second it went through. Good. And Australia has pulled it back to 2. Well, an incident-packed first quarter here at the Superdome. It is New Zealand. They break. The crowd will try and lift the Australian effort in this second quarter. It's the Ferns by 2. Wilson, tip from behind from Gerard. No whistle on that effort. Tahuna. Just lost a footing there, had to offload before she took a step. Tahuna, double pump, and puts it through.
That was just a great picture then of the double teaming on Arjen van Dijk, and even more specifically the fact that when they double team, De Melza Fellows is in position for the high ball with Ellis working the front short recovery pass.
Bomberto. Avellino trying to place it.
That was good work from Billy Darvu, who's not the lightest on court to get up from the ground and dispose of the ball within 3 seconds. Tough call for Cox, though.
Tahuna, lovely ball movement down court from New Zealand, and well finished to go out by 4 with a centre pass to come. George. Wilson. Tahuna to Van Dijk. Accurate, effective. Fellows out of play. New Zealand by 5. Crowd a little stunned, expecting Australia to counter early in this second quarter. Contact against Von Berto. Langman's taken a heavy knock.
Well, it's a tough call for Von Berto, who also was eyes up to the ball. They've taken her for not allowing Laura Langman to land, but truly, you've got to have time to make that decision, and Von Berto was committed just equally to the ball.
Timapara George, Tahuna, skirting across the circle, a turnover. Australia guilty in the first quarter of handing it straight back when they got one. What about this time? Gerard to Avellino to Anderson. Bag 2 from 2 when she came on in the first quarter. The rebound was all Jolene Henry.
That ball dropping short for Anderson, but there were Silver Ferns' fingers on it as it was trying to leave her hands.
Bacon watching it come off the fingertips of Laura Langman, so Australia has it back. Fellows to Avellino. No easy passages up court for Australia in this match. Contact against Timapara George. And Cox. Darvu, good hold. Cox, good goal. Wilson, sure hands. And Avellino. Oh, some pressure from Gerard. Wilson looked at the umpire.
Gerard's been doing a wealth of work on the edge of that circle. The previous play Gerard had been instrumental in. It was Ellis who picked up the crumbs from her hard work, so she's earning her money at wing defence.
Anderson opens it up with a 1-2 for Gerard. Cox needs to be accurate and remains that way on 13 from 14.
And that's superb shooting from Catherine Cox. You can see in the shots the reach of Davu over her ball, and Catherine Cox not one of the smallest out there.
So Cox across to Von Berto. She swings it. Oh, no call to favour Australia there as the hand came out from Davu. Must have been off Anderson. Temapara George, Laura Langman, Nadine Wilson to Van Dyke. It's help from Wilson, top of the circle. Gerard is giving her a thorough workout. Von Berto gave Temapara George a bit of a shove.
Great work, Demelza Fellows. The Australians offered that, and they had it set up the whole time for Fellows to come back space for the intercept. Brilliant work by the defensive duo.
Anderson after Davu, hand on the ball. Australia has scored the last 3 to have another run at New Zealand, who open it up to 5. This is better stuff from Australia. Just Fellows stopping on the drive, so she goes for Von Berto. Cox and Davu shoulder to shoulder. What a contest.
Well, there's no pardons or pleases out there, that's for sure, as it should be on international court, but they're working for every possession.
Cox did beautifully to keep the ball in play, and goals. Back to 1.
Well, the go-to girl for Australia is standing and delivering. She's in remarkable form, Catherine Cox.
Anderson to Catherine Cox, and Australia is level. 5 in a row.
Megan Anderson was just the 3 from 5, but she understands her role and is playing a secondary complementary role to Catherine Cox.
Too much on it for Van Dyke, and Fellows is playing well in this unexpected role being given by Norma Plummer, but perhaps she was training the lights out, and they've gone in with a game plan, and they've held their nerve, and I'm not surprised there's a timeout as Norma Plummer shoots a wry grin, knowing full well what this timeout is about as Temapara George goes down. So what a nice little run coming from Australia. They've hit the lead 21-20 after being down 20 to 15. Vicky Wilson, a great effort from the Aussies under some pressure.
Well, they're under a great deal of pressure, particularly Cat Cox, and she is standing and delivering. She's working the space well, she's working the hole, she's coming out, moving Davu around very nicely.
Well, Cox and Davu are having a fine old time out there, Annie.
It's been very physical between the 2 players, but Cox has been magnificent in standing her ground, taking the ball and delivering. She hasn't batted an eyelid.
So the Australians got their noses back in front after being down by 5. The Kiwis with a bit to worry about. And Monica Lam, any thoughts on what's happening here?
Very interesting at the start of the second quarter. I thought that really both ends of the court provided the turnarounds, and in particular Demelza Fellows' intercept on the goal line I thought was inspirational, as well as the levelling spirit of Megan Anderson. She seemed to just be adding that element of calm and not pushing the ball very fiercely into Cox. They're playing the space nicely, playing the pace of the ball nicely, and I really think that Avellino is giving both of those players ample space.
I wonder if a levelling spirit is like a spirit level. Thanks, Mon. And the players break. Got to get back out there. The injury timeout is over. Temapara George.
Steve, I'm sure the word in the New Zealand camp was to remember how they play netball, and that's to attack. The last couple of players have seen the New Zealand backline sit back and guard players rather than attacking and cutting up space and ball.
The ball is somewhat missing. So out comes another match ball. Temapara George with a restart as Wilson. Instruction against Gerard. And Tahuna with the shot out of the left hand, and Van Dyke with a good rebound. He's always awake to those, and at 190 centimetres tends to take her fair share.
New Zealand impressive again through Irene Van Dyke, who is the most accurate on... Oh, I lie. Is the second most accurate on court behind Catherine Cox, who continues to power them through. But Van Dyke, as we thought, doing most of the work. Tahuna, though, with 9 shots, it's more equal than we expected.
Edge of the seat stuff from Australia. Avellino, well done. A tip from Anderson. So the attacking players contributing in defence as they must do. Gerard gave it straight to George. Well read. Had front position on Nat von Berto. Langman to George. She has the potential to be the influential player in the midcourt. To Huna. No, it's to Wilson. They'll try to get two back on Van Dijk, which frees up. And Fellows. Well, it's pretty physical defence, isn't it? Could have been a whistle against her. There wasn't. Avellino gets rid of Langman. He's not going to take any nonsense.
It's just great the way the girls are shrugging off the physicality of this game. It's everything you expect.
Well, that was inviting Davu to take the intercept, and she duly did. Wilson to Huna.
And she wrote the script at the same time by the look.
I think she wanted to commentate and be the umpire at the same time. Van Dijk. She's great entertainment, Billy Davu. 22 all. Almost halfway through the second quarter. Gerard to Cox. So it seems to have settled down after those two runs. First by New Zealand, then Australia.
Change of attacking format for Australia sees Cox out on lead. You saw her go out to the far side of the court. So they're switching the leads for the shooters, mixing it up.
Cox back up off the floor. Anderson was just more or less holding it up until a teammate was set. Davu. Well, she was a great hold. Davu is tall at 190 centimetres. She's got a good reach. And she's always been a tough defender for the Australians to deal with. And she is tonight again.
I think she's quite mild-mannered off the court. Quite a sweet girl, but puts on a Superman suit when that black uniform goes on.
Langman now to George. Looking for Van Dijk. Off Liz Ellis. Now, New Zealand colleagues from TVNZ were saying that Billy Davu has really trimmed down in the last few weeks particularly. She's looking especially fit, and she's giving 100% tonight at quite a rate.
Well, the story is a couple of players perhaps left at home because they hadn't taken up the challenge of fitness. And certainly both the teams on court looking magnificent.
Hands up from Anderson. Through to Avellino, and Fellows driving up court. She's having a good match.
She's having a great game, and if you have the time to watch, and there barely is that, the combination between Ellis and Fellows, there's a lot of talk, and they're really reading the space on Van Dijk well.
Anderson helping with a screen for Cox as we get back to 23 all, and Australia the centre pass.
I just wonder, Steve, there's been big raps on a couple of defenders. Anna Scarlett, of course, we know, but also on Casey Williams, who was player of the match in the New Zealand Domestic League final for Magic.
Great ball. Unfortunately, Cox was pulled out of court. To Huna. George. So maybe not such a great ball. Ellis elevates. Van Dijk settles. Under 6 minutes left in the second quarter. It was New Zealand by 2 at the first break.
Again, great work from the Australian pair. Swinging off to Huna at the last to pick up Van Dijk. There's not been a moment in the last 10 minutes when Fellows has not read that the back space is open. She's shut it down every time.
New Zealand with the lead in the centre pass. I think they were paid to wear that headgear in. To Huna, off to Wilson. Gerard wearing her like a glove. Maybe the thinking from Norma Plummer is to put Alison Broadbent out there in the second half. New set of legs to try and wear out Irene Van Dijk.
It'll be interesting. Both sides have talked up the new players to the lineup. Norma Plummer on screen with some options. Sarah Barrett available to make her debut for Australia. New Zealand too, with 3 debutantes available to them. Now, do they play to win it for bragging rights, or do they start to expose some of the new ones to the line looking ahead?
There's the Commonwealth Games in the back of the minds of coaches and players. This is a very important match. Cox to take the shot.
And Davu stands out for the 11th time in this match. She's the most costly on court.
4.5 left in the first half. George off to Wilson. To Huna's out. George sees that Van Dijk is 2-on-1, but she just breaks back into space. We've got to play her down, and Gerard is in trouble.
All sorts of trouble.
and it looks like it might be a knee injury, and she's in all sorts of bother. So our hearts go out to Monia Gerard at this moment. How did this happen? She stepped into the circle and under pressure from the defence, and as so often happens, these knee injuries occur without a big collision.
No, you could see it was awkward. There was little room to make the challenge, and you saw the stream immediately. And Monia Gerard is not someone to stand the ground.
So watch the left knee of Gerard just give there.
Yeah, you can see she wasn't able to carry her weight well over the planting of that left foot. She was going into an offside position, not good for the Australian wing defence.
So Wayne Rogers and Dr. Lynn Pugh attending to Monia Gerard, playing her 8th international. She's come through ankle injury and surgery. Alison Broadbent comes over to check on her Swift's teammate, and I think Broadbent will be into the fray. So 2 injuries to Australia in the first half. And she is warming up with Eloise Southby-Halbish, Alison Broadbent. But Vicky Wilson, Australia still finding themselves down by 2 again.
Well, it's going to be tough from here, bringing on another replacement, but Ali Broadbent played so well in the November test at wing defence, so she'll be coming on very confident, but it's a new line. We haven't seen Broadbent with Fellows and Ellis, so it'll be tough for the Aussies.
Starting to run out of troops. We're ready for a restart. Broadbent is into the game. Australia centre pass. Another change their lineup, and Alison Broadbent gets an early touch. And Kiwis have made a change as well, but there it is. Broadbent on for Monia Gerard as Davu picks up the scraps. And New Zealand made the most of the opportunity to make a change also, with Scarlett coming on at goal defence to replace Jolene Henry.
And we just moments ago had preempted the New Zealand change, wondering whether Ruth Aiken would explore the deck. Scarlett, as we mentioned, the next most experienced defender to the 2 that started. And behind her, Casey Williams, we're yet to see, but big raps on her.
So Scarlett, her 20th international for the Silver Ferns. She's all arms and legs, a bit of an Inspector Gadget.
And Steve, you mentioned a new combination for Australia, Ali Broadbent having to link with De Melzer and Liz. More importantly is her ability to link with Nat Von Berto, because it was around that circle edge that Gerard and Von Berto were really holding up the feed.
Just off New Zealand hands. They're a bit unlucky there. They were all over that rebound. And Anderson gets set again with Scarlett out of play. They needed that one, with New Zealand starting to put a bit of a gap between themselves and Australia once more. They have led by 5 early in the second quarter. Australia got back in front. Now it's New Zealand again. It's what we expect. And Von Berto all over Temapara George there.
In a very unassuming manner.
Yeah.
She's been playing a nice linking game for Australia. She's quite unassuming in the way she runs up and down, but her work with Gerard has been solid. As we mentioned, options for Australia would be Sarah Barrett being exposed to the game at the moment. Australia just really need to stay in touch.
And a held ball against Tahuna, so a tribute again to the defence. Broadbent on to Anderson. And Swift replaced by a Swift, with Broadbent coming on for Gerard.
That was called a replay by Anne-Marie Dixon, where in fact it was slapped from the hands by Laura Langman. So Avellino well aware of that, but no time to protest. Such is the game.
Wilson, Tahuna, and George. Fast, feisty, efficient. Van Dyke, contact against Ellis. And Liz Ellis with 8 penalties. And Irene, this is just shooting practice. And she's got her 20th from 22 attempts, so she's in the 90s as expected. Von Berto, clobbered by Langman. Anderson. Oh, well done, George. He got up quickly, and Billy Davu's left it behind. Cox. And a contact against Scarlett, so Cox will have another go. Gee, it's pretty willing around that circle, Anne.
Yes. Some of the challenges are off balance and a little clumsy. They're tenacious, if nothing else. Magnificent work, though, by Temepara George, who went up so beautifully for the intercept. I thought we were a little late getting out of her space, her landing space, to be fair.
So Van Dijk gets set with fellows out of play. Oh, contact against keeper. Oh, no, she's changed her mind to obstruction. I think that's closer to the mark.
Such a fine line between the timing of the jump for the intercept or slapping the ball. Worth a go, though.
So for a 4-goal lead with less than half a minute remaining in the first half. So New Zealand have steadied and pushed it out. Fellows. Oh, it's pushed out of court by Tahuna.
That was very clumsy challenge by Tahuna, both contact and obstruction. Really little in an advantage call.
I'm afraid it's all being missed by a couple of the umpires. It's just a little bit quick sometimes.
Well, there's no point giving an advantage call if, in fact, that's what was given then. I was unsighted if the person's being clobbered along the way.
So this is the last action of the first half, and through it goes for Anderson. An important one, perhaps, as they narrow it to 3. But it is New Zealand slightly extending their lead in that second quarter, up by Van Dijk and Liz Ellis. One of the key matchups in this test between Australia and New Zealand at the Superdome. It's the Silver Ferns by 3. As Wilson looks to get it straight to Van Dijk and does so. Ruth Aitken would have had some calm words to say at half-time. Would have been pleased to find herself in front with changes to her squad. The same is true of Australia. Anderson. And Scarlett pulls down the rebound. Davu. Cox reaching around. Scarlett stepped into the challenge, and Avellino off the tip from Anderson. He does great work in defence. Von Berto to Cox.
Davu mixing up her defence of the shot, electing to jump then, but making no difference to Catherine Cox, who's shooting at 84%.
Wilson back to Scarlett. And Anderson does it again. And Broadbent comes charging out to make sure of the possession. There's Von Berto just over the head of Langman. His passes have got to be right on the money as Cox puts another one through, and Australia's got a run here. They've got 2 with a centre pass to come. Anderson. Contact against Temepara George.
Well, the double defence was on Nat Avellino, blocking her as access to the centre pass. Avellino did a good job, though, of holding a space.
Cox was anxious about that one. Now Australia scored 3 on the trot. Tahuna, smart hands. Wilson, captain.
Contact, sorry, slow.
Yeah, she apologises, Beryl Lewis-Turner. Just had the whistle up to the lips a bit early. Would like to have played advantage. Oh, Demelza Fellows took a piece of Irene Van Dijk there.
No, she didn't. It's a throw-in call.
Oh, really? Good, well. Okay. Did you see what I saw?
Yeah, but I'm just calling the game as it happens.
Yeah, that's fine.
Contact centre, penalty card.
Contact this time against Nat Von Berto. George smiles. Bubby, as she's known. And Van Dijk. This is the incident we're referring to with the challenge from Fellows. With a little left shoulder.
Definitely got the left shoulder making contact with Van Dijk.
So, Fellows lucky to get away with that, but didn't matter to New Zealand in the end because they got the goal. So, in a match with as many whistles and penalties and incidents as this, you know, it's all going to go one way.
No, and the players are toughened that they will expect to receive that on pathway to the goal, so they'll still stand up and take it.
As we get deeper into the match, turnovers become so important, and what you do with them. Tahuna led Fellows right the way out of the circle. Now they both go back. George. Tahuna plays with a composure well beyond her 13 tests. Ellis to Broadbent. The Swifts circle defenders. Broadbent playing at wing defence now.
Very congested in the Australian mid-court, but they're patient until it sorts out.
Umberto. Nice to see the action end on. You get a new perspective on the use of the width of the court.
Catherine Cox caught having to really plant wide to take the ball for good position and just couldn't get the handle. But you have to admire her work rate. She is working overtime for Australia.
Tahuna off to the corner. Just plays the game seemingly effortlessly. Touch from the Australian defence. Oh, offside against Australia. Oh, Irene and Liz getting to know each other even better. And a steadier for New Zealand, but Australia's centre pass. Anderson, red-faced with the effort of running. Oh, she was open, and Scarlett does magnificently to get it to Davu. They just hesitated on the pass, Australia, and that's all the invitation Scarlett needed.
Well, Scarlett comes up with the statistic, but mainly because the vision to Anderson was too slow from the Australian front line. She made a beautiful play to the post. It was just caught too late.
Yeah, we saw it, but sometimes the angle's a little harder on court. There's a lot of traffic out there. Being able to see past opponents and teammates is part of the problem.
And I think, too, direct access to the post has been few and far between in this game. They've had to play the angles and the cross-court moves as preliminary moves. Alison Broadbent doing a wonderful job keeping Temepara George off the circle edge to feed.
3 is the lead, as it was at half-time, and we're 5 minutes into the third quarter. So, despite a couple of turnovers, Australia's not been able to keep a run going. So Norma Plummer, what has she got left? She knows that McMahon and Gerard can't take any further part in the game with injuries. It leaves her with Southby Halbish, Sarah Barrett and Natasha Chocolate as unused on the bench to this point. Van Dyke. And the crowd getting into the game with some thoughts about the umpiring. Avellino to Anderson.
Natasha Chocolate just on screen with Sarah Barrett. I guess one of the considerations in introducing Natasha Chocolate, if you introduce her at wing defence, she would lack height on Dean Wilson, who's quite a tall wing attack and a very athletic player.
I think the crowd is seeing the willingness of the contest in that Australian attacking circle, and reckon that Catherine Cox is getting the worst of it. But they've got biased eyes, haven't they?
Catherine Cox delightfully poker-faced, not playing into the antics.
And falling out of Kurt, Irene Van Dyke, mouth agape. Where was the call, she said.
But Liz Ellis pulled for a replay on the throw and had lost the handle as she stepped up to the mark. So Van Dyke not able to land it on court. That's a great call. But followed up on a misplay of the throw-in.
For a 4-goal lead, Tahuna pulls back, and who's there?
Well, that was Fellows' possession. I'm sorry, I don't mean to show her, but she had front position and was up early.
That's a shocking call. Fellows had that ball. Anyway, Van Dyke will make the most of the gift, as it surely was.
Also a bit of a chat there from Anne-Marie Dixon to Demelza Fellows. Ruth Aitken looks on reservedly.
Okay.
So, plenty of pressure.
Steve Fellows with inside position. Oh, it's tough from that angle, isn't it? Might have to swing around the decision on that one. The case you could fight, though, is single-handed possession, because people shouldn't confuse 2 hands from Van Dyke and 1 from Fellows. Doesn't mean it's Van Dyke's ball.
New Zealand's ball, and a 4-goal lead halfway through the third quarter. Tahuna back to Wilson. No dramas there. Sure of the possession and the goal.
That's number 11 for Jodie Tahuna, who's played not the sacrificial role, but a complementary role to Van Dyke.
And a chance to stretch it to, I think, the biggest lead of the game. They did lead by 5 early in the second quarter, New Zealand. This for 6.
Almost for Australia as the two circle defenders throw themselves at some angles on that ball. You could see in the preliminary lead-up work, it's all about keeping Van Dijk out.
She's short. And contact against Van Dijk. So Australia need to look after this ball. Broadbent.
Put that one down to great pressure from Demel as it fellows over the shot.
Broadbent. Anderson. Avellino. There seem to be black uniforms everywhere.
It's amazing. Wilhelmina Davu would surely have had that intercept on that ball to Avellino had not Laura Langman run across it. You can see on that replay that was set up for a New Zealand circle player running out onto the ball.
And the ball slapped into the court by Nat Avellino, unhappy. Davu, Scarlett. And New Zealand looking just slightly the more composed. A bit of dissatisfaction with the calls coming from Australia.
Catherine Cox throwing herself into a work, albeit into the centre third, and it will now be advanced, possibly for deliberate.
It was an offside call.
Offside.
George on one leg. And the penalty count 41-37. Not much in it. Australia giving up 4 more. 5:18 left in the third. New Zealand by 5. And Van Dijk will make it the biggest lead of the game so far, out to 6. And a satisfied Ruth Aitken, I'm sure. Avellino to Cox. Yeah, the heads were down of the defenders. Cox with eyes to the ring.
Beautiful take from Wilson off the centre. That's probably one of the prettiest of the match.
Delightful passage of play from New Zealand. It took all of 2 seconds. Bomberto stuck. Broadbent up the line. George nearly gave it back to Cox, but Scarlett's long hands were there.
Australia lacking vision then, hadn't realised Davu would run out for the intercept and Cox was home alone. I think a sense of panic creeping through the court.
3-second call helps Australia. Anderson. And the Scarlet eyes wide apart. Wide open. That sounds better. Anderson trying to work it through Bomberto to Cox.
Oh, that is just really inappropriate. Very late.
Well,
watch here. The first attempt fine. Now you watch Cox with possession and the steal, almost like a rock and roll. I mean, it's really inappropriate for international court.
And they'll have to wipe the court because Billy Davu has fallen to the floor and the perspiration is always an issue. So the floor wiper out. Anderson. Really having trouble getting the ball to a position where the goalers are happy. Scarlett and Davu.
Look at the span that both Scarlett and Davu can offer over a shot. Little wonder Australia looking for closer position.
Obstruction, defense, outside.
Cox and Davu leaning into each other.
Obstruction, defense, on the side of her, please.
Scarlett looking surprised, but she had crept in from her initial position.
Got the rebound. Australia getting to take so few opportunities. And when they come, they're just seemingly not ready or on target. The crowd sensing the frustration of the Australian side and trying to lift them with every call that goes for them. It's like pulling teeth getting a goal at this end.
I think the crowd too motivated by New Zealand's overt gestures, the hands in the air applauding the decision and Davu's gestures. I'm sure that motivates the Australian crowd even more.
Australia's scored only 7 goals in this third quarter, 9 for New Zealand, so it's become a bit of a defence-oriented game, and plenty of whistle too.
And you see there that Anderson, having had just the 5 shots because of the role she's playing in setting up Cox, makes it doubly hard, the pressure on the Australian goal shooter.
Really, some of the contact now is so blatant and so late that it's spoiling the game. That's down to the umpires to put some authority back in the game.
Norma Plummer looking quite agitated. A little wonder to me that there hasn't been a warning, particularly on that last very late, very deliberate contact by Davu.
Davu with 17 penalties. And we make this comment from time to time about Australia-New Zealand matches, that the umpires, who must come from neutral countries, are sometimes not up to the pace of it or the intensity. And I'd start to make that observation now late in the third quarter. And I mean that for both sides. They tend to take advantage of the umpires when they know they're getting away with things. New Zealand by 5 with the centre pass.
New Zealand with superior goal accuracy at 83%. Australia at 74%. But Catherine Cox shooting at 82%. Rebounds 9 apiece. So both equally hungry for those opportunities.
No movement on the New Zealand bench, but there is... Sorry, Anne. You go.
No, New Zealand just a little more ball in terms of the turnover and disrupting Australian play.
Yes, the Australian subs are up and warming up. Avellino, Bomberto, Cox swings it to Avellino again. And Scarlett. She's had some impact on the game since coming on late in the second quarter. Langman.
Scarlett's built like a feather, but really deceptive on what she attacks.
And it'll be a New Zealand ball with 15 seconds left, looking for a lead of 7 to take into the last quarter, and they'd be almost unbeatable from there. And Australian possession.
Difficult call for Norma Plummer. Possession opportunities between the teams fairly even. 47 attempts for Australia, 49 for New Zealand. For Australia with possession, the shooting stats down at goal attack, and of course Cox under enormous pressure, but the shooting options getting a little skinnier with McMahon on the sideline injured.
And New Zealand, 15 to go, 6 the lead for New Zealand. Temepara George back to Scarlett in support. And Fellows. So Natasha Chocolate comes on at wing defence out of the Melbourne Phoenix Club, and Sherelle McMahon, her teammate, back in the game after injuring her ankle.
Beautiful play by Australia. Catherine Cox caught early on her hold. Good decision by Von Berto to ignore it. Picks up Sherelle McMahon on the base.
So Chocolate in perhaps her preferred position of wing defence, although she has filled in at centre and wing attack. Bomberto going to see it out. Oh, it's down go a couple of New Zealand players, bouncing off Sherelle McMahon.
Well, Sherelle McMahon takes a piece of Temepara George as she sweeps into the circle. The action a bit like a pinball machine.
Well, Scarlett was looking to exact a little revenge and was pinged by the umpire for so doing. Australia with the first 2 of the last quarter. But New Zealand with the centre pass. Lang.
That's been a pattern of each quarter. Australia coming from the bench with renewed vigour, really making their mark. It's sustaining it that's been the problem.
Oh. All players coming together there. Ellis, Fellows, Van Dyke. And New Zealand won that first quarter by 2, then 1, and then stretched the lead to 6. So they won the third quarter by 3. Oh, kept in superbly by George. How did she do that?
Oh, there'll be more statues built for her across New Zealand, remembering what a hero she was to New Zealand after the World Championship final.
She is so quick. Oh, the foot was so over the line.
Very quick and very over the line. And the beauty of the replay.
Well, we didn't see it, but the umpire is right on that line and should. Tahuna. Oh, air ball. Unusual for her. With Tahuna 12 from 18, so just in the high 60s. Fellows to take it. Australia down by 6. McMahon. Bomberto. Avellino calling for it. But Cox is the handy option. Oh, the hand on the hand from Billy Davu.
Followed by a fairly big swipe. Catherine Cox will know that she's played in this game. You see the touch just on the wrist, which of course is where the shot's initiated. And that was followed by a fairly generous swipe, but Australia back in possession.
McMahon. Cox. Scarlett all over her. Cox a little short with the shot. Langman. George. Tahuna.
Offside, wing defense.
And Chocolate is drifting into the circle offside. So 11:40 left. New Zealand will be mindful that they've let leads go in the last quarter in big games before. Talking World Championships, Commonwealth Games, but they look a steadier line these days.
And that play opening nicely to Van Dijk.
Right here.
And Van Dijk is 32 from 35. With Aitken, she saw Van Dijk shoot 11 from 11 in the second quarter. And so she's only missed one since half-time as well.
New Zealand enjoy great accuracy through Irene Van Dijk. 32 goals at 91% accuracy. Let there be no doubt she is a key figure in their lineup.
Billy Davu plays with so much passion and does tend to alienate a few spectators. I'm not quite sure what that was for. And she may have just been warned.
Well, difficult to read that, but it was translated into an on-court penalty and Australia taking advantage with the shot. So perhaps a little bit too much to say.
Wilson, superb athlete, the New Zealand captain, taking over from Anna Robry, and Leslie Rumble is a former captain on the bench today.
Robry expected to re-enter this line by October. She's been on court playing in New Zealand but returning from injury. But Wilson expected to maintain the captaincy.
Chocolate to Bomberto, who's almost in the way of Catherine Cox, or vice versa. There's McMahon, found by Avellino. Oh, that was lucky. Wasn't her best shot. Australia with a centre pass. Need to convert. Start chipping away at this lead as the minutes start to tick away. And Cox, 29 from 37. McMahon, 5 from 6. Anderson had 5 from 10. Whoops.
Difficult position for Australia. They're in chase position. They're playing with passion, but they need composure balancing it.
Alison Broadbent feeling a moment as the turnover goes to New Zealand. No one to blame but themselves. Avellino.
In Davu mode.
Yeah.
Avellino, I think, showing some frustration in her defensive work, is trying to have a go a little late and a little untimely as Scarlett chases it down.
Obstruction against McMahon. But that incident with Avellino bears out what we're saying about the umpires. If they miss heavy, clumsy contacts, then the other players start to say, well, I'll do that.
Avellino coming through the body and prepared to go on with it, as we've seen previously from other players across the match, but
pulling the possession arm out of the way, and that's how sloppy it can get in the heat of battle. And
same then, no distance given by Avellino, never really retreated the distance and went on with the contest, but the call's just too slow and not regular enough, not consistent enough to control the game.
Down they go, McMahon and Scarlett.
Here's another as we see Sherelle McMahon go through the body in an effort to retrieve the ball. So Australia, a desperate time for them.
Penalties are 53 apiece, so both sides equally guilty. Oops, Avellino clocked from behind by Timapara George, looking for the loose ball. And tapped on the back by Timapara. Scarlett, great rebounder. How many is she up to, Todd? She's got 4 rebounds. Van Dijk. And contact against Liz Ellis quite plainly. Halfway through the last quarter, Australia has made no impression on this New Zealand lead. And a Kiwi call going up from the small section of New Zealand supporters in the crowd.
Now both players will be stood out as Arjen van Dijk undergoes shooting practice.
3 in a row for New Zealand, setting up what ought to be a match-winning lead. Australia has only scored 4 goals in this last quarter, having made quite a promising start. They've done that in all 3 previous quarters.
Now an offensive contact goes against Dean Wilson, and players must be awfully confused on court at the inconsistent calls.
McMahon, contact against Scarlett. McMahon absolutely flying into that circle and didn't have a lot of room to pull up. And Scarlett rebound again with a help from Davu.
Well, the shots just won't fall for Australia when they most need them in chase position.
Obstruction, okay, fellows. And she was certainly late. I was waiting for a contact call, but...
Saw the pat on the back from Liz Ellis saying, you know, disregard it, let's get on with it. That is a danger that you put so much attention into what you see as incorrect calls. It detracts from your game. Australia need their absolute focus.
Oh, dear. It's off Billy Davu, who pleads it wasn't her. Oh, she's got the call. I thought there was a change of mind from the umpire there, but anyway, on we go. New Zealand finishing the stronger. They're 7-4 in this last quarter.
Well, that came down like a train, absolutely uncontested from the back line by Australia, who were chasing.
Obstruction against Tahuna. Chocolate, Avellino. On to Van Berto. And Catherine Cox. Hasn't had many opportunities here in the last. Scarlett takes another good rebound. Well, she's not played the whole game, but she's close to player of the match. Australia's shooting percentage has tumbled to 70. And New Zealand has 84% shooting. Australia's only had 1 less attempt.
I think we spoke at the front of the game how important it was that Australia sustain the accuracy, irrespective of how physical the game gets, because they are able to produce the same amount of possession in the circle.
New Zealand looking for a punishing win here. Ruth Aitken must be very proud of what her troops have done. They had a good preparation in Melbourne, got a couple of games in against sides in Victoria. And Temapara George can't handle the ball on the ground like that.
I'm really not even happy watching that. That was almost joint possession in the first place, but the whistle too slow to separate the players. You then see a player dive offside to go on with it. It's really beneath both teams that they're able to go on with it.
Well, we come back to that argument, don't we, that the players have to accept some responsibility, but it starts with the umpiring.
You watch here, it's almost joint possession or an argument for it, but the whistle doesn't seem to come quick enough, or the players disregard it.
Cox, down she goes, possession to New Zealand. The argument is that once the players lose faith in the umpiring, then they start to try and take over themselves, and then the responsibility is with them. They do take advantage. They do play the game not as it should be. But I maintain that the issue is really with the standard and the control of the umpiring. Anyway, it's New Zealand who are on their way to what ultimately is a deserved victory.
Oh, you wouldn't want to detract from the skill they've put out on court. They have had the edge. However, I think overall, particularly this final 15, has been marred by what we've been talking about in terms of illicit challenges. Great shot from McMahon, the Australian vice-captain, to bring Australia to 41.
But only their 6th goal in this last quarter. Very low-scoring game for Australia. Slightly better for New Zealand, of course, as Van Dijk misses one for a change. Australian ball. And Liz Ellis was kind of up to the line, but not really, in her haste to play the game.
Looking for the quick play on. As soon as Liz Ellis steps to the line, the 3-second start, she's urging her team to keep on with it.
She wants Australia to fight this out. 2.5 minutes to go. Scarlett, it's got way too physical. You don't see this in the National League here.
No, you don't, and I don't think you'd see it in New Zealand's National League either. You see there the contest of the shot, but then going on with it, and that's just not able to be done under the rules of our game, and these players know better than that.
Well, it's an IFNA position that we will have neutral umpires over the game, but you will not get any argument from Australian or New Zealand players or supporters that what should be happening is one umpire from Australia and one from New Zealand. And in the attempt to bring up international umpires to the right standard, this is what we're witnessing.
Out there, stay out there.
Warning now goes to Wilhelmina Davu.
Yeah.
Time is back on.
Obstruction against Scarlett, so they're both out. And it's a little too late with Australia down by 7. Oh, out it comes.
You have to wonder whether some of Australia's skill has been eaten up by their frustration in this final period.
When they have had open shots, they've squandered them. And Davu off to Langman. Just her 4th test. She's handled herself very well. Kept her position out there. Kept Rumble off the court, which is a tribute to her. Tahuna. Hit from Ellis. And there you go again. Again, we say it's coming from both sides. And Irene van Dijk takes her time, as she's entitled to do, and gets New Zealand to 50, and they've got victory in their sights as we get down to the last minute. George. Oh, Avellino did well. Bomberto. And the coach, Norma Plummer, will want to see 100% effort right to the last second. Oh, McMahon, one of the best passages to the goal of the game for Australia, but McMahon with a short shot.
Australia can't buy goals in this final period, and will disappoint them. We've acknowledged how tough it is out on court and how physical it is, but I guess both coaches want their teams to stand up, take it and deliver, not falling for Australia.
A scrappy game at times, but it's played with the intensity you expect. Cox to McMahon this time. No whistle. Good timing from Scarlett. Contact against George. And in the last few seconds of the game, Norma Plummer with plenty to chew over. And whatever we might think about the umpiring, it's the New Zealanders who have adjusted better. And McMahon has lost the confidence at the post. This is the final action of the international at the Superdome, and it's New Zealand who come away with a 7-goal victory. They deserved it.